Yes, we are recording. All right, cool. So, Mention in Dispatches is rumbling on in season 8. Mike is back. Mike, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm glad to be back.
I'm glad you are back. That's outstanding. And the plague still hasn't caught up with you yet, so that's good, right?
Oh, it's still trying, but it hasn't done it yet.
What's the retirement countdown at? 10 months and
311 days.
311 days.
Not that I'm counting.
Yeah, exactly. And then a first timer for Mention in Dispatches joining us for the first time here on the podcast. Our buddy Justin out in are you in Seattle or are you just out in the Seattle metro area? Out on the left coast somewhere.
Yeah, Seattle metro area. We'll call it that.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Pretty good here. So I'm in Raleigh, but like when I go over to Gamers Armory and people, where is that? It's in Raleigh. No, it's in Cary. Look, nobody that isn't from here knows where Cary is, right? It's in Raleigh, right? That's all anybody knows around. They don't know the difference between Knightdale and Garner. Half the people that live here don't know the difference between. So before we get started on tonight's show with Justin, we do have an event announcement we need to make here. The U.S. Fight Club is very similar to the U.K. Fight Club. It's this very loose collection of sort of professional practitioner kinds of gamers that also bring in some of the hobby world as well. And they do a variety of events aimed at helping the professional development and further the exposure of the wargaming world to the professionals and the practitioners. And so they've got a variety of events that they've been doing over the course of the last year and a half or so since they've really stood up this effort and put some push into it. And so in the looking forward from when we're recording this podcast, right? If you're listening to this 3 years from now, can't help you. But as we were recording this podcast, the spring of 2022, on April 30th, USA Fight Club's got an event up in Arlington, Virginia. So those of you in the DC metro area or folks that can get there easily enough, there's a big Fight Club event going to be going on at the Improbable Defense US headquarters. That's a company that's donated their space. They're letting USA Fight Club use their facility. And so on the night of April 30th, 5 to 10 p.m. They're gonna put out some snacks and munchies and light munchies and whatever. And so they're gonna do a variety of in-person games. And this tabletop stuff. The plan is not to go digital, although there may end up being a couple of digital things. But the whole all right. I take that back. They're going to do tabletop stuff on site. They're going to have some hybrid things so that folks want to join remotely can. So there will be some digital gaming as a part of that. But there's an RSVP on the website. It's usafight.club. So you can go RSVP on the website if you want to come hit the area. Again, there's no cost to this. They're just asking that you RSVP so that they can make sure they've got enough site support for how many people they think are going to be there. In the past, these kinds of things have included a variety of just hobby war games of professional interest. So a lot of the modern era things like Next War series or some of the coin series, those sorts of GMT products. I imagine some of the Compass games, Cold War kind of stuff is probably going to get some run. And who knows what these hybrid ones are going to involve in terms of some online play. It may be Vassal and Tabletop Simulator stuff. It may be some actual digital games. So we'll have to see. In any event, usafight.club is where you would go to get more information. And so this is April 30th from 5 to 10 p.m. So with that infomercial out of the way, we can now get back to just cutting up and goofing off because that's sort of what we do here. And so with all of that, Justin, with you being the first time here, we're going to let you sort of talk about yourself a little bit. And one of the big places where people might have seen you is you got a YouTube channel where you do a bunch of coverage of wargaming stuff. Talk to us a little bit about the channel.
Yeah, well, so the channel started basically kind of it wasn't like it's supposed to be a long-term thing. It was actually just started as a thing to occupy my time and play games that I had been sitting on my shelf during the pandemic and hadn't been doing a lot of wargaming. And I just gone through a breakup, so I had a bunch of free time on my hands. And I was like, I should start playing some of these games. And so I decided I'm going to start a YouTube channel, which, by the way, if you search on YouTube for Justegard, JUSTEGARDE, that's where you can find it. But I started just doing playthroughs of games that I was soloing that I was just trying to get played that I'd always wanted to play. And people started watching them and leaving comments, and that kind of had me eager to do more. And, we were still in the pandemic. This is like right prior to before vaccines rolled out. So we were still kind of, or at least I was still hanging out indoors a lot, not going and doing things necessarily. And so it was a nice way to like spend some time, especially like after work, if I wanted to like not be in front of a screen. Essentially,
Yeah.
I work in video games professionally, so a lot of my time at work is in front of screens, whether it's at like a computer for work or in front of the game that we develop. So yeah, so I started a YouTube channel, started doing war games, something that I'm like super passionate about as like a hobby, and people kept watching. And then I decided when I was out and about, like at conventions or whatever, hey, it's a good opportunity like to do some content, whip out the camera. Just kind of whatever is interesting to me. I don't really have like a rhyme or reason to like what the content is, or there's not really like a concept to the channel per se, like some people have. I just kind of like do video about what's interesting. A lot of the time that's kind of going with a game that I'm playing solo, but sometimes it's other things as well. So I've been doing that for, I think it'll actually have been a year. A couple weeks ago, I think, is when I uploaded the first video. So it's been awesome.
Very cool. Very good. So yeah, the channel's linked below this podcast episode. So folks, you just click on that and bounce right on over. So you get a chance to see that. So Mike, just randomly throwing up YouTube videos of games you're sitting there playing solo. This doesn't sound at all familiar, does it?
No, that's an interesting idea. And I may have to try that myself.
Says the Mike hopping in the time machine. How long has My Worst Enemy been going now? I mean, you're over 3 years, aren't you?
I'm approaching 2 years, I think it is. I'm
like
kind of in the same boat as Justin. It's funny, the pandemic and how it changes things. I had plans for when I retired. I'm like, I'm going to start doing a war game channel on YouTube. And of course the pandemic hits and you're locked indoors, and it's like, I'm going to start it now because I have the time to do it. And so, and much like Justin, that wasn't really anything that I was initially thought I would do long term. And so, I tell people when I go back now and watch the first couple of videos, I look like a hostage reading from a prepared statement in those things. I am getting better, but it's kind of what I did, and I enjoy doing it now. And the more I do it, the more I like it. So I love hearing stories like Justin's. I think the more of us that get in and on YouTube and do this, the better for the hobby.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the other thing too is it's like during the pandemic, especially, it's like not a single person I know who plays war games or board games in general stopped buying them. So, it was like, how do I get through the library? Because like there's still stuff coming into the house, right? And I haven't seen anyone for a year at this point. I haven't had a game night in a year. And it's, am I ever going to get these played, right? So it's kind of an outlet for that too. And for everyone else who's sitting at home who like wants to see some of this stuff played, I know that when I watch like content on YouTube, it's like I want to watch stuff that like excites me that I don't own or I've never played, or get other people's opinions on it. That's the kind of stuff that's interesting. So I feel like the pandemic, if there's a silver lining to take from it as it relates to war games, it's kind of the content creation space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's that's how that's how Gary's counter clipping stream started, right? Gary just turned the camera on one night and just, hey, let's just talk about war games while I'm sitting here clipping counters. And it wasn't by design. He'll tell you it totally wasn't by design, but a half a dozen people were watching live and chatting back with him. He's like, yeah, this is kind of fun. Let's do this again next week. And like 6 weeks later, people are like, damn it, when's the Monday night stream go live? And so here he is like a year later, and he hasn't stopped, and, probably couldn't if he wanted to,
That's his thing now.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the counter clipping and scotch guy. As we are recording this, Gary is at Winterfest, and that did not stop him. He still did the counter clipping stream live from Winterfest last night. The problem was the hotel Wi-Fi, and it was like trying to watch a video on dial-up in 1996. It's just sort of constantly buffering and sticking, and it was hard to watch. I mean, the guys
but he did manage to get an extra bottle of scotch in there, I saw. So he actually had 2 bottles of scotch on the desks.
Well, but he also had extra people stopping by, so he had to share the scotch.
He did. He was sharing. That's true.
Yes. So
It's funny you mentioned that video, that stream, because I'm actually watching it as a video today, kind of off and on between work and stuff like that, just to see what's going on, and like following his coverage of Winterfest and seeing the pictures on his social media of all the crazy OCS stuff that they're testing there has been super awesome. Yeah.
Now, Winterfest is always a visual treat for folks that can follow the coverage that Gary does, and anybody else that happens to be posting pictures from there. The biggest issue with Winterfest is that it's in Ohio in February, and nobody wants to have to go to Ohio in February. Like, we get it. That's when you can get cheap hotel space. Totally understand. It's still Ohio in February. It's not the garden spot. With the whole idea of, you're right. People did not stop buying games just because the pandemic hit. And my own game library that doesn't all fit on the shelves anymore is a testament to that. So I now have to go. I've thinned it out as much as I'm going to thin it out. It's time to go get more shelves, and that's going to involve a rearranging of furniture up here. But yeah, I've got the stack starting to pile up on the monitor boxes over here on the side that is starting to get a little ridiculous. If you want to know what came in, go check the last like 8 months worth of unboxing days, because I've got all kinds of stuff in there that we've been posting pictures of. Mike, you're much in the same boat, right? The still had games coming in. It's the stuff that showed up in unboxing day, but there's plenty to play with, right?
They have not stopped coming in, no. But one thing you just said, though, you really need to tell us how you managed to thin down your collection, because I do not understand those words. I don't get that.
So honestly, this is something that actually does matter a little bit, is because of the site and previous sites that I've worked at, I do get a bunch of review copies sent to me, or some comp copies from publishers here and there. And one of the things that I always make it a point to do is, if I am thinning some of those out, because in some cases I'm covering games because I'm trying to help promote stuff, to whether it's particular designers or publishers or new games or new game lines or whatever, like we're going to review those things. We're going to talk about them. We're going to, do some coverage of them, whether they're AARs or whatever. At a minimum, we're unboxing stuff. If it's something that I paid for, like, I'll figure out how to take care of that. I may trade it with somebody. I may sell it. I might whatever. If it's stuff that got sent to us for comp copies, I either find somebody at one of the other Dragoons to send it to, or I end up donating it to one of the game libraries. Like Gamers Armory here in town has a pretty good game library that people can check out to play when they're over at the store. Back when I lived in Columbus, review copies of things that I got that I wasn't keeping all got donated to Cabs. So the Tide of Iron game that they have at Cabs was one that I donated to them. Hector and Achilles was one that I'd covered way back at the wargamer.com days, and I wasn't going to keep that one, so I ended up donating that one to Cabs. So if they're ones that get sent to us as comp copies from publishers, we find another home for those. If it's something that I paid for, then I might end up selling that or trading that with somebody, something else to get some other kind of games in the door for me here. But even with the Dragoons, like, we end up sharing games around. Mike, you've shipped some stuff to people. I've got one here sitting in a box waiting to send to you. Banzai Cat, when he was moving during his last move, he sent me his whole set of Millennium Wars games. So that was something else I found space for on the shelf. But
my goal is to have my game room look like an occult bookstore from like a movie, where it's like precariously stacked things that you have to like wind your way through. You need like a map once you're in there to get out, kind of thing. It's just, I just want you to be able to get lost, like floor to ceiling, like war games,
Yeah. So the people that are listening to the audio can't see this, but I'm going to move the camera just so that you can see the stack that's the Euro game stack over there in the corner. And so just describing it to the to the audio folks, from the bottom working up, it's Islebound, City of Iron, 2 boxes worth of Mare Nostrum, Historia, Imperial Settlers, Kingdom Builder, Risk 2210 AD, the Jaws of the Lion Gloomhaven set, the old Pathfinder beginner box. What is that one? Oh, Steam Time, Castle Ravenloft, and High Frontier in one stack that is sort of kind of balanced on a baby bookshelf.
That's a solid pillar.
Yes, it is. And
so I was going to say that the game collections that I've seen online that impressed me are Stuka Joe's is one, if you've watched his video. And I think it's Alexander from the Player's Aid. He took us to his library once, and it was also equally impressive. I was like, wow, that's my goal, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Eric Walters' War Room. He's in the midst of moving right now. He was down in the middle of Virginia somewhere, but he's moving up to the DC area right now. So it'll be interesting to see what the new War Room looks like. The 3rd floor of his old house was nothing but his war game room, and the guy's got over 1,100 titles in there, but he's also got one of the big 10-seat Geek Chic tables in the middle of it. And Mike, you remember seeing those from Origins. So.
Okay, and now you say he's moving to the DC area. I'm going to need to know where he's moving to exactly. I'm asking for a friend.
I'm not going to broadcast it on the podcast, but I can get you in touch with the good Colonel, and you can hang out and chat with him some.
Colonel? No, I'm wanted by the military. Never mind.
He's retired. He's a retired Marine, which means he's now grown his hair down to his ears and thinks he's a hippie. Justin, out there on the list, so we've talked a bunch about Origins and some of the East Coast conventions on the podcast over the years. You, being out on the left coast, get to go hit all those other game conventions that the rest of us just get to read about. And so you've hit a couple of them over the last few years. And so that was part of the reason we wanted to bring you on the podcast tonight, was to talk to us some about those conventions we never otherwise hear about. And so the most recent one was just like a couple of days ago as we're recording this. You were at Game On over there in Seattle. Talk to us about it some.
Yeah. So Game On, I think started in like 2014. So I think they're in their eighth. It was this year, I guess, was their 8th year. It was February 10th through the 13th. But it's essentially, it started as a wargaming convention, and it's grown over the last 8 years. They do it every February in the Seattle area, usually on the east side of Seattle, so one of the outer suburbs. But it's kind of moved around. But it finally came back this year. It's actually kind of weird because Game On 2020 was the very last thing that I did before the pandemic shut everything down, because it was in February, and it was like, then I went on a work trip for 2 weeks. When I came back, everything was done, because I came back like right before everything locked down. So technically only missed 1 year of Game On because they didn't have it in 2021. And this is the first year back. And so it's every February. What I like about Game On, so it is primarily a war game convention, although you do get a mix. I did a bunch of videos from the show this year just to kind of show what was going on. It was a little smaller this year than it has been in years past, but primarily, it's a war game convention first, but then there's also a pretty sizable general gaming contingent. And the folks who kind of run it, the council of people who run Game On, varies. It's a whole collective of people who all work together to put it on. Most of them are war gamers, some of them are hobby gamers and non-war gamers, and everyone coexists peacefully and supportively with one another. And it's actually pretty nice too, because the early parts of the convention, it used to be just a weekend, Friday through Sunday, and now it's expanded to be Wednesday through Sunday, which is a lot. And actually, when I went this year, we started on Tuesday night. I volunteered to help Jeff, the guy who runs it, set up. If he would give us some table space on Tuesday night to set up a big game that we were playing, me and a local guy here played the Mighty Endeavor, the full thing with both maps. And so, so we got some extra time in there, but it's an awesome time. There's a lot of people playing monster games. I believe the designer of Time for Trumpets was there doing a game all week. It's a good time. What I like about it the most, and I highly encourage, if you're ever in the Seattle area in February and you want to go to a gaming convention, is come to this one. It's super chill. They cap the attendance usually every year at around 150 people. So the goal is to always have it feel intimate and like familiar with the people who show up every year, and not have it get so big that it becomes like sort of more towards like a mega convention. And I like that a lot, because you end up seeing the same people every time you go back. You end up making friends. I've made a lot of friends through that convention, and the only time I hang out with them is at Game On. But in the weeks leading up to it, we always are like, okay, what are we going to play? What do we want to play this time? We actually there's 6 of us who go every year, and we always, on the docket one night, we always play Thief 1429, which is just like insane. It's like primarily a negotiating game. I mean, it's not really, it's kind of a war game, but it's mostly a negotiating game. And it just gets like so outrageous every year. And it just becomes like this fun tradition. So yeah, Game On's a fantastic time, and they do it right. I mean, the venue that they had this year was new. It was a hotel that has like a legit restaurant in it, not like a hotel restaurant. So, and they had this whole scheme where they had QR codes at every gaming table. So if you want to make an order, you just scan the QR code and put it in, and then everyone in the hotel knew exactly where to bring it to you, because it was assigned to each table. So there was never like having to leave the room if you didn't want to, and there was no one ever searching for you to find where your order was. It was just like, it was amazing service, and the food was decent. So it was a good time. Game On's awesome. It's my favorite. I've been to many different conventions. I've been to Consim World. I've been to the StrategiCon in LA. And to me, like the most fun that I always have going to a convention is at Game On.
So Brant, you heard that. Now, when you run the physical Armchair Dragoons convention, I want food delivered to the table as I'm playing games, and scotch.
Okay, so look, you'll be retired by then, probably twice, so you can get your own food because you've got time to do it. Can we get back to like actually attending real in-person conventions before we try to run one ourselves? Can we get
that's probably a good idea.
Yeah. Considering how little help I get from the rest of you guys pulling off the ACDC, I'm not in a hurry to try and pull off an in-person one by myself either. So
I hear you. Now, so Game On sounds awesome, actually. I was just, as you listed the things that the fact that it's smaller, I like that. I don't know how much it's grown in the past 8 years, but I like the smaller conventions like that. But yeah, that just sounds like a good time.
Yeah, it is, and we get people from all over, sort of the upper left North America. I mean, we have people come in from some years from Vancouver Island. One year, a couple years in a row, a guy who came in all the way from Prince Rupert, Canada, which is like way up there, like almost to Alaska. And then we get international people coming in a lot too. I know, not recently, but Kev from Hipshot, he Big Board Gaming, he has come several times, all the way from Texas. We had a guy this year come all the way from the UK for the week.
Wow.
So yeah,
there's his name Bob.
Okay, so hang on. Was he there for Game On, or was he there for work stuff and he just timed it to be there during Game On?
So I asked him that on Tuesday when I was there, because he was helping set up. I asked him, he's like, no, I am here for Game On. He's like, it's been too long. I've been locked up in my house in England for 2 years. He's like, I wanted to get back to conventions, and it was like, this was the first one that we could do easily. So I was like, I was all about it. He's like, I told my wife I was going for a week, and yeah, it was pretty crazy.
That's hardcore, man. I could see somebody going to like Huzzah in Portland, Maine from England, but man, to go all the way to Seattle just for a game convention, and not a big one. Like it wasn't like Gen Con or something, that's
I thought going to Origins was impressive for me, but yeah, wow.
Yeah, I was impressed. And what's funny is like he came and then he spent the entire convention just playing Time for Trumpets. That was it. Like he played that one game the whole week, but he was having fun. So hey.
Yeah, that's a long way to go to just have some fun, but I admire it, man. That's powerful there. I remember seeing some early pictures from Game On 2015, maybe. There was one year that David Heath took Lock and Load up there, and they had kind of an official Lock and Load presence. And I don't recall for sure, and I'm sure he'll correct us in the comments on this thing, but I think Barthart flew out there from Ottawa that year for the Game On stuff, because part of what David was releasing was some of the stuff that Vance had helped test. And so I think he had flown out to Seattle for Game On that year, 2015, 2016 timeframe, somewhere in there.
I actually remember that year, because I think that was 2015 was the first year that I went, and I remember them being there, and they were a huge supporter. They've been a huge supporter of Game On, even when they're not there in person. And actually this year, the designer, I believe it was the designer who's testing he was designing their new Napoleonic game that's going to be coming out, the Napoleonic tactical title. Can't remember what it's called. It's in my video, but he was there doing play tests of it, and it looked really good. And they always contribute door prizes and stuff like that. So they're usually heavily involved.
Yeah, we had Devin was on our happy hour this past week. As we are recording this past week, is like 2 weeks ago by the time we released this. Devin from Lock and Load popped into our weekly Monday happy hour that we hold on our Discord channel, and it wasn't really intended. We were just sort of being smart asses to Devin about, hey, when's the next Lock and Load Kickstarter finally going to get around to happening? Because it's been imminent for 2.5 years now. And Devin started running through like the entire Lock and Load production schedule for the next 18 months. We're like, we didn't ask for this. Like, we're not telling you to stop talking about what's coming, but this wasn't really what we asked you to do. But he talked about the Napoleonic titles and even mentioned the fact that they'd gotten some play at Game On. It
looks fantastic. Looks really good. I wish I could have sat down with the designer. I just didn't have time between games to do a video on it, but I'm really excited about that particular system.
Yeah, that'll teach you to want to play games at a game convention instead of just shooting
right.
Creating content. So, yeah, the smaller conventions like that sound really cool. I mean, Buckeye Game Fest back when I was going was much closer to that size. It's probably doubled in size at this point. Just it's been over 10 years since I've been to one from back when I was living in Columbus. But the couple of years that I was at Buckeye Game Fest 06, 07, 08 time frame, it was pretty small. It was 100, 150 people and one giant hotel ballroom and maybe one additional room on the side. And
to me that's the ideal size for a gaming convention. I've been to Gen Con several times. I've been to some of the bigger ones, and like they're fun for the spectacle for sure. But like I find I do way less gaming at those types of conventions than I do when I go to something like this, where it's like I can sit down and it's relatively quiet, and I know the people, and people are down to play whatever, or you get the same group playing the same game every year. Like that to me is like the kind of experience I want to have, because like I want to actually play my games.
Yeah, nobody's ever going to describe Origins as quiet. That's
no.
That's pretty much it, so. Mike, just think, if you went to a convention that size, you might have found your missing Japanese infantryman by now.
Or I would have lost more.
or possibly that.
You lost a piece at a convention?
No, don't listen to Brant. Actually, he's not
We
telling
told
you.
this
He
story a
really
couple
isn't.
times on the podcast before, but it is one of the most
He's
remarkable
not telling the
things
full
we've ever
truth.
seen.
I did it twice, two years in a row.
Mike opened the shrink on the box, and there were pieces somehow missing. Like
Time of
two
Crisis
counters
was
punched out of it.
Yeah, it was Time of Crisis the first time I had missed a bunch of governors or something. And I had a picture where I actually had them. So I know I had those. And then the next year it was Cataclysm.
Gathering
and
Storm,
I ended up losing 2 Japanese infantry units.
I like to think that 30 years from now, someone's gonna find them like on an island holding out somewhere, like those guys after World War II who were like fighting into the 70s, you know?
That's
well
possible.
played.
Or they're going to rip up the floor in the convention center in Columbus, and they're going to just find all that stuff under there.
Yeah. I really think they probably fell into one of the little electrical trap doors that they run the power cords through underneath the convention
Maybe.
floor.
I don't know. I was just like, who would take 2 Japanese infantry?
I will say this, for whatever it's worth, we didn't notice they were missing until after Grant and Alexander were there.
Oh, that's true. And there were 2 of them.
There's 2 pieces missing, and it was after the Players Aid guys sat down and poked around that game with you.
And they were not happy with the way I was running that game. So you may be right.
That sounds like the gauntlet was just thrown to them.
Like they listened to us or something.
I was going to say, if they knew who I really was.
All right, so before Game On, you've had a couple of other conventions out there on the West Coast that you were able to play around with some. You got to live out everybody's great dream and hanging out at GMT headquarters because you went to the weekend at the warehouse I say a couple of years ago. It feels like a couple of years ago. It was just like this past October, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I've actually been several times to the weekend at the warehouse. So I would say, coming back to what we were talking about earlier about flying really far to go to a convention, I think So I think there's probably two conventions. If you're a war game fan, there's two sort of organized conventions, maybe three actually, where if you are really into war games or into particular war games, that flying, no matter how far away you are, is worth it. And obviously Consim World, I think, is a big one if you can do it like the Super Bowl of war games. But for the experience you can have at GMT's warehouse, it is totally worth it to go no matter where you live. What I love about it is, first of all, it's, again, super casual. They don't make it too big. It's usually 200 people max, right? They have a lot of playing space, but you also get to you're literally gaming in their building. So you get to see the warehouse with the giant racks and how many copies of games that they have there. They let you do shopping on Saturday, and they frequently hold back stuff that's been out of print specifically for people who go to the warehouse. So if there's something you've been looking to pick up, it's an opportunity to do that. It's like a reward for people who come visit them. Super fun. A lot of designers and developers are there who bring their prototypes or bring games that they've worked on. Like the first time I played, the first year that I was there actually was 2015 in October, and I was just there with some friends who at the time lived in LA, and they drove up and met me there, and we were just going to play games there because it was a nice place to meet, sort of not halfway, but between us that we could get to easy. Yeah. And I remember me and a friend playing Wilderness War there one of the days, and it turned out that Volko was also at the convention, and he walked over and we started having a conversation about Wilderness War, and I was telling him about how it's one of my favorite CDGs of all time, and just the topic and how interested in the French and Indian War I am. And so that conversation spawned into us just kind of keeping in touch over the course of several years. And then I went back the next year and got to play test Falling Sky, which he was working on with his son, and he had brought the prototype to GMT, and I got to play it with Mark Herman, who was also there. And so we had a game. It was me and my two friends and Mark Herman playing Falling Sky, which was super surreal and super fun. But it's just it's so awesome to meet those folks because they always come out to GMT. And there's just a lot of new games. This last October, I got a chance to play test the new British Way, the coin game that's coming out it's the quad pack of the 4 end of British colonialism. And I didn't know what to expect, but I was as soon as I played it, I pre-ordered it because it was amazing. And there's just the feel. They have a really kind of family feel. If you go a couple times and you start to get to know the people who are there or who are working with GMT, they're super welcoming, again, super chill, and everyone's super nice. The office staff works over a weekend to make sure that everyone has a good time at the convention. And I mean, I don't mean this in a bad way. It might come across this way, but like you're in Central Valley, California, where like there's not a ton to do outside of the convention, so everyone's there for that, and and you're allowed to, you can like focus on a lot of that stuff. So yeah, GMT's thing is awesome. Like I have nothing but good things to say about that, and I think everyone should try and go at least once, just because of how they run it and stuff like that. I was also there this past year. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I know where Hanford is. It's in the middle of flipping nowhere. I mean,
I didn't want to say that, but I'll let you say
I
it.
will. I've been up and down the Central Valley, but like John Compton grew up out there, so I mean, he knows it's out in the middle. Did you like fly into Fresno and drive over there, or did you go into LA with your friends? Or
I've done it both ways. So I sometimes I fly into LA and my friends give me a ride up, and we just road trip it up there. It's 2 hours or something like that, north of LA, 3 hours maybe. But the more convenient way for me is there's a direct flight from Seattle to Fresno, so I just fly in early morning, rent a car, drive the 30 minutes to Hanford, and then I'm there for the weekend, and then fly back on Sunday, basically.
Yeah, Fresno cracks me up. It's this 1.5 million people in the middle of nowhere because a train broke down there once in the 1800s or something, and people just figured that was the train stop, and the city grew up right because you needed an agricultural shipping point out there somewhere, and a city grew up around it because a train broke down there once, like long ago. There is no good reason for Fresno to exist other than they needed somewhere to ship stuff out of.
Although now it's like it's kind of a college town, right? Because Fresno State University is there, which is like a big university, and it's also like if you go to Yosemite or any of the national parks in the Sierras, that is where you would fly into if you're not coming from California, because it's the closest big major airport to get there.
It's the closest big city to both Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks. So I've been up and down the I-5 corridor a couple of times, I-5 and California 99, which runs the other side of the valley. And there's nothing out there except fields until you hit, Fresno or Visalia or Stockton, or, stumble into one of the towns along the way by accident. So you're right. There's nothing to do out there except go play war games in Hanford. So
it's great. I mean, it's totally great. I mean, gaming in their warehouse is like also super nice. Like the amount of space they have for stuff to play is insane because of the square footage of their building, and it's so unassuming from the outside. It's like this brick building like that shares some warehouses with other companies, and so you would never know if you drove by that like that's where GMT Games was until they open it for people at those weekend at the warehouses.
That sounds like I can totally see GMT wanting to bring in like a lot of the designers and developers and sort of almost making a business weekend out of it in addition to the wargaming stuff. But the idea of being able to see a lot of those games like a year or two before they even hit P500 is probably a pretty neat experience.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and so I was going to say was I'm actually working on a design for a game, among other things that I'm doing. And I actually brought the playtest prototype there just to get playtesting on it, but also to show them at GMT just like what I was working on kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of people doing that as well. A bunch of, like you said, they typically give everyone who comes like an advance notice of what's coming to P500 in the next couple months. So there was this, they do a state of GMT on Saturday morning or Sunday morning, I forget which day, where Gene talks all about the stuff that they're working on and what designers they're doing. Like we knew at that convention, they talked a little bit about Napoleon, which just hit P500 a couple months ago, the new Ted Racer Napoleon kind of.
I'm not even sure it was months ago. I think it's been since Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like fairly recently, but like, they were telling everyone about that in October when you were there. So it's like a really nice way. If you want to peek behind the curtain of what GMT is working on, it's awesome for that as well.
Yeah.
Did they limit the numbers to that thing, or is it?
They do. Yeah, they do. I'm not sure if they cap it based on their capacity or if they cap it based on the local hotel capacity. Yeah, it's usually around 200 people, maybe a little more. So it's not huge.
Is it like a lottery system or something that you have to go through, or
no? I think it's, when they confirm it, like they're gonna do another one here in April that I'm planning on going to, and I think as soon as they confirm that they're doing it in the next update, I think it's just you let them know that you're coming and first come first serve. So
yeah, okay.
First 200 people who see the email and reply.
Right,
exactly. Yeah.
If anybody is curious about the timing of that update, it will be released by Gene approximately 6 minutes after we post Tuesday Newsday. All of the GMT news will get released to the rest of the world right after Tuesday Newsday goes live, so that by the time we get around to talking about it the next week, everybody's been talking about it for an entire week before we get it included in our update, just because that's how they roll. I swear the only thing they watch for on our site is for Tuesday Newsday to go live. Okay, it's live. live. Okay, good. Send our monthly email out.
And of course, if you hold on it and you don't post it and you wait for that update, the update will be like delayed a week or a month or whatever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That actually happened one time. It's not that we held on to it. It was just because of my regular work schedule. It was running behind that day. And so Tuesday Newsday didn't post until like dinner time that evening or whatever it was. It was pretty late. But somewhere in there, like an announcement went out on their website. Yeah, the GMT updates run a little behind. We'll post it next week. So that's exactly what happens. So,
Murphy's Law. It never fails.
As the Dragoons proudly charge into their 8th season of Mentioned in Dispatches, we'd like to pause and thank those Patreon supporters who pledged at the regimental patron level. So a heartfelt thanks to Treb Curry, Staggerwing, Patrick Mullen, Mike Quigley, Hethwill Wargames, Patrick Garrity, Robert, Kevin Bertram, and Joseph Knoll for their support of the Armchair Dragoons and enabling us to bring you the best wargaming content we can. You too can sign up as a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/armchairdragoons.
One of the hallmarks of GMT stuff is just the time that they take in playtesting and developing their designs before they go live. And, they'll be working on stuff 2 and 3 years before they even tell the rest of the world that they're working on it. I know Red Dust Rebellion, we first saw that back at a previous website 4 years before GMT even picked it up. We had an interview with the designer. And I remember, so A Distant Plane, Volko and Brian started working on that in 2010 is when they were on the panel at Connections together, and I think that published 2013 or 14 when that one finally escaped into the wild. I remember seeing Andy and Abyss at Connections in 2010. That's when Volko had the playtest one there, and so I think that one got released in 2011 or 2012. Yeah. But by the time Volko had the playtest at Connections, it was at the National Defense University that year. It was already a pretty well-developed game. And at that point, it was just sort of playing it just to see if something weird happened. But the core design was pretty much set. So
it helps that he's a genius, by the way.
Well, yeah, that certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
So we, Joe Miranda and I were the co-chairs of one of the panels at Connections that year, and I booked Volko and Brian together on that panel. Joe brought in Roger Mason for that panel also, and so because that was the year that Brian and Volko met, which led to the collaboration for A Distant Plane. And because I'm the one that booked them onto that panel together, I've always joked that I claim like 9% of the credit for the fact that A Distant Plane even exists.
Well, hey, listen.
And that's probably still too high, but I've just always kind of, joked about
that's actually really awesome to know, because I was just going to say, if you go way, way back, A Distant Plane is actually the very first hardcore war game that I ever bought or played. It's a game that got me into the hobby when it came out. So even if it's 9%, you're 9% responsible for me being here now at this moment.
The world works in mysterious ways.
Sure does.
All right, so game on, weekend at the warehouse. You did a Consim World Expo. You did some StrategiCons. Any good war stories in there for those that you want to talk about some?
Yeah, well, so StrategiCon I did once, and I was actually in LA for work, and I only got to go one night, but I met some friends. That's a convention I would really like to go back and do more regularly as it sort of gets ramped up again. I know they do it like 3 times a year, and there's kind of like a different focus on each one. Like the same group does that convention 3 times a year.
Yeah, they hit 3 of the holiday weekends. I know Memorial Day and Labor Day are 2 of them, and I think the third one's 4th of July. I don't remember for sure. It could be 4th of July. It could be like Columbus Day weekend or something. I don't remember. I know Memorial Day and Labor Day are 2 of them, but isn't one of the StrategiCons up in San Francisco?
It may be now. Yeah, it might be, because it's like StrategiCon, OrcCon, and I forget what the third one is called. And they all OrcCon is much more about role playing, from what I understand, and StrategiCon is much more wargaming heavy. So
we're also in front of computers where we can just pop right online and look this up, and we're all
right. Yeah, exactly. So that one's fun if you're in the LA area. But the other one, Consim World, I've done once, and I would like to go back. I learned a lot about that particular convention with that experience. like the most important thing, if you're ever thinking about going to Constant World, my biggest advice to anyone is like, make your plans, go with someone you know, or meet someone there that you know, and make the plans really far in advance, whether you're trying to play with people you don't know, or going with friends, because there's very little pickup gaming that happens there, at least in my experience when I was there. And it's really hard to find people to play something that you want or join other games, because everyone's got their like monster game set for the week, like 2 months in advance, basically.
Wow.
So unless you want to do demos, but like with designers and stuff like that. But it is very serious business at Constant World, in terms of like making sure you have your itinerary set before you go, I find.
Yeah. Now
But as a solo gamer, I would have no problem doing that without taking someone, right?
or even getting on a plane.
Yeah, sure.
I would just pull off the campaign for North Africa and start playing by myself.
There you go. This will sound a little silly, but just to clarify for the audience, you're talking about the original CSW Expo out in Phoenix, not the new, more recent vintage one that is standing up in Dallas.
Correct. I actually did not even know there was a new Dallas one.
Yeah. So John had relocated to Dallas some number of years ago, and I want to say they actually did one in Dallas a couple of years ago pre-plague, but the plague had stifled John's attempts to get the Dallas one off the ground the last couple of years. They are actually registering for the Dallas one now. And it's happening in April. Again, like if only we were sitting in front of a bunch of devices that would allow us to instantly access this info. But I'm going to pull it up here real quick. But CSW in Dallas, where'd it go? Expo Dallas. It's coming up in April, and page is loading. Oh, it's May. My bad. May 12th to 15th is when it's going to be happening in Dallas. So you do have an option for those of you in the middle of the country. More importantly, you don't have to be in Phoenix in July. Much like Winterfest is Ohio in February when the weather sucks. Phoenix in July, it's not really pleasant. Now, again, you're not going to spend a lot of time outside, but
I mean, but like, yeah, it was 118 every day while I was there at that time of year. It's like even just walking across the block to get like lunch at a restaurant, it's like the top of your head starts to tingle as soon as you step out the door, Yeah, very warm.
Yeah. All right. So going back the other direction, you crossed international boundaries to make it to a game convention as well.
Yeah, I did. So yeah, back in every November, there's a convention in Vancouver area, British Columbia, called BottosCon. I like to call it the Canadian version of Game On because it's almost all of the same people, pretty much, who do that show as well. But it's done in New Westminster, BC, which is a suburb of Vancouver. Again, it's a really fun time. It's about the same size as Game On, 150 people, more Canadians than Americans, from sort of the western part of Canada, but other people show up there as well, but it's primarily wargaming. They do ASL championship stuff there. That's sort of like a big like segment of the convention is the Northwest ASL championships, I believe. But yeah, it's again, that's another great one. Like if you're ever in Canada, in Vancouver area in November, they always do it on Remembrance Day weekend. So Canadian Veterans Day. It's just, again, really well run. The venue's really nice. There's a lot of stuff. Unlike Hanford, there's a lot of stuff to do around the venue and a lot of places to go eat and stuff. So it becomes like a nice social experience after hours where there's like 3 different bars you can go to and everyone's in there having a beer and whatnot, talking about the games that they've been playing. I actually, this past November, the one I was at, I got super lucky. So one of the days that I was there, this guy shows up with a playtest demo, a prototype that he's built of this game. What I would later learn is sort of like a spiritual successor to Republic of Rome. Wow. And it's a negotiation heavy Roman game. You each play as one of the 4 major families in sort of the Republican era of Rome, and it's all about influence and politics and stuff like that. Got a lot of very similar systems, so it's very inspired by that. But it turns out he's been designing this game for years. He is from Sweden. He lives in Sweden. He had friends that he had met through wargaming that he had never met in person before, and he just so happened to be in Canada on vacation in like Eastern BC, meeting up with these friends, and they convinced him. They said, "Hey, you should take your prototype to BottosCon one day while you're here, and just see if you can get some people to play it and check it out." So he did one session, and I got to play in it, and the game was awesome. Super excited about it. It's called Julii. He's got a Facebook page, and he and I have been going back and forth talking about play testing it and stuff like that. I think he's got a vassal module made for it. I think he's looking for a publisher. I think he's pretty far along in potentially getting a publisher for it, but it's a fantastic game if you like Republic of Rome. Very similar in vibe, and just got super lucky to be at BottosCon when he was there. The one half day that he was there, got a chance to play it. So, that's the other thing about small cons, is like you never know who you're going to meet there. It's what I really like is like people bring stuff that you've never even heard of that you can sit down and play test, and it ends up being super interesting. And trying to build that buzz is BottosCon is great as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. There's actually one of the other Dragoons is a BottosCon regular. Silent Disapproval Robot from our forums is a regular at BottosCon. He's a Vancouver local. That's
Awesome.
home for him. And so every year at BottosCon, he ends up throwing a bunch of pictures up in our forum. So go check out the forums. You might be in some of the pictures. Who knows?
I might actually know him.
Because the convention's not that big, so there's only so many places to hide.
And that was, it's funny you mentioned going across international lines. It was like the first time I'd been to Canada in 2 years. It was like they had just opened the border again to be able to get across without like crazy, rigmarole to go through COVID and stuff like that. And so it was just like so refreshing to like go up there and like be traveling internationally again and doing something that was fun. It was the first convention where, it was like, okay, can we do this safely in the pandemic? And, there's a lot of good policies in place for that. And it just was very comfortable and very well run. Rob does a great job.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's very cool to hear. I know that's been one of the big things that a lot of people have talked about is how do we start pulling off these game conventions so there's two pieces to this, and I don't want to end up drifting off into political turf, but the reality is that there's still a plague out there that can dramatically impact people. Even if there's a very small chance, any chance can be too much of a chance for some people. And so you want to make sure those folks are actually safe. But then on the other side, the practical reality of how do we actually do this within the constraints that the local health authorities give us to do these things. And so that's something that you've always got to figure out and work around with. So
it seems like people are figuring it out. Like, there's obviously conventions happening now and they don't seem to be going badly for anyone who's attending, which is awesome.
Yeah. Look, we did Origins this past year with the plague going on, and it wasn't as big as a normal Origins, but it still felt like Origins when you were in there in the midst of it all. And that was still really cool. The one thing we noticed, you got to talk a little louder to be heard through the mask, and you need a different mask every day, because by the end of the day, running games for 4, 5, 6 hours a day, your mask is pretty darn sweaty and rank, and you don't want to put it back on the next day. So
soggy mask is not a good convention experience.
No, it is absolutely not. One of the first conventions that happened in person, not really post-plague, but kind of mid-plague, although we didn't know that at the time, in November of 2020, the guys out in Charlotte that from Just Us Productions actually pulled off Mace, Mid-Atlantic Convention Expo, but Mace in Charlotte in November of 2020. It was over Veterans Day weekend. There was 0 walk-up registration. They had capacity limits in all of the individual rooms, so they actually had to have bouncers at the doors of the rooms that if you had a ticket for an event in that room, you were allowed in that room, and if you didn't, you weren't in there to keep the room capacities below what the local health officials said. But basically, Jeff went to the local health officials and said, tell me what my restrictions are. I'm going to stick to every single one of them, but I'm doing this. Like, you tell me what I'm allowed to do, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to step an inch out of line, but I'm going to do everything I can within the rules you give me. And they did. They ended up with 280, 300 people or so. Now he takes over the entire ground floor of a fairly well-appointed hotel that has a bunch of different large conference rooms and ballrooms. So he's got some space to spread out. It wasn't much of a vendor presence because you can't really keep the head count down in the vendor room. So the vendor presence was pretty sparse, and a bunch of them were actually out in the hallways because that's where you could actually have some traffic past them. But they pulled it off. They had an in-person convention in November of 2020, and then they had another one this past year in November of 2021, and that was their 25th anniversary show. The bad news on this, and where I'm bringing all this up, is we're waiting to see what happens with the future of Mace. And this has been released on the Just Us Productions website. But Jeff had put a statement out back at the beginning of January that he had been diagnosed with liver cancer. And so they had put some of the events on hold. Mace, there's the main convention in November, but then they also do Mini Mace, Mace West, and they usually do a cruise as well. That is a big game cruise as a part of all this. They had canceled the Club Mace cruise. Mace West is still going to happen in March, but beyond that, we're not sure what the future holds for Just Us Productions. And they posted an update in, what was the actual date on this? 16th of February. So just within the past 2 weeks or so as we're recording this, that Jeff is now in the last stages and they've stopped treatment because it's not making a difference. And unfortunately, the gaming world is going to lose a really awesome dude and a really good guy. I've known Jeff for over a decade now. And so they're keeping Mace West on the schedule. Beyond that, we'll have to see what happens to the company and everything else that Jeff used to run. It is unfortunate. It is a very sad thing whenever we lose one of the gamers, but to lose somebody that had put that much blood, sweat, and tears and that much love of gaming and shared that much of his love of gaming over the last 25 years. I mean, that just really sucks. It's a real gut punch, and it really sucks what's happened to Jeff. And so folks out there, please keep the Smith family in your thoughts and prayers, and not because we're losing a game convention, but because the gaming world is losing a really awesome dude and a husband and a dad, and he's a fantastic guy, and it sucks that this is happening. Sadly, Mike, we're all getting older, man. This is happening too much.
Yeah, it's happened a lot this year, seems like.
Yeah. So I don't want us to end on a downer. I did want to make sure that we had said something about Jeff, just because we've talked about Mace before. It was one of the first things we covered after the Dragoons launched. Like, Mace was one of the first things that we covered once the website launched. I drove out there and spent a day out there in Charlotte, walking around, taking pictures, doing some live coverage from the show and everything. We'd had Jeff on the podcast way back in another podcast. He's just a fantastic dude. And I wanted to make sure that we gave him all the credit he could possibly get for the 25 years of running a great game convention. And wanted to make sure we did that. So
that's a long time, 25 years.
Yeah. I was, back when Bayonet Games was a thing, I was a vendor back when they were still in High Point at 06 or 07. I was there as a vendor. Also played in a bunch of stuff while I was there. Had a great time. They were very welcoming. It was a ton of fun. Was also there a couple of other years intermittently over the years to just play some stuff. Just popped in, did some media coverage, played some games while I was there, did some playtest stuff, similar to what you Justin, to what you had at some of your other conventions. We were always planning on, when we got around to doing an actual Dragoons convention, Jeff was going to be one of the guys we called for some advice. All right, Jeff, how do we pull this off? Because you don't really know what you don't know until you try doing it, and then you suddenly figure out all the things you don't know how to do. We were hoping to be able to ask Jeff for some help to do that. And right around the time we were ramping up to actually take that plunge is when the plague hit, and we put all those plans on hold. But again, the point here wasn't to be a giant downer on all of this. It was to make sure that we offered some small tribute to Jeff and all the great work that he'd done over the years in the gaming world. So on that note, Justin, what's the next convention you think you're going to hit? Where
it's probably going to be GMT in April. Going to go back for that and, have a blast over a weekend.
And so we'll be watching for coverage on the channel.
Definitely. Hopefully able to. It's funny because when I go out, my friends are always like, hey, if they have this game, can you pick it up for me? So I always have to go with like extra suitcases so that I can bring some games back home that I buy there. So I definitely will take, if not a video, definitely a photo of the before and after luggage going to that convention.
Yeah.
So my favorite thing about Gen Con is that like they have a whole station that does nothing but do shipping for you. Yeah. So like you can ship home whatever you buy there. It's such an easy show to just spend tons and tons of money at, and then you're like, how am I going to get this all home? So they have like Gen Con like staff running the shipping station where you can go and pay for them to box up your games and send them home, which is just like wild.
Yeah, the ground floor of the Columbus Convention Center at Origins has a UPS store, or it used to. I don't know if it still does. But they used to set up a booth up in the exhibit hall up above for you to be able to just, oh hell yeah, there's tons of people, and because they handle all the custom stuff for you. Also, a lot of the international folks would use that for the international shipping. So after weekend at the warehouse, what's next? Any idea?
That's a great question. Yeah, I guess after weekend at the warehouse, I've been kind of wanting to go back to Constant World. My mom lives in Phoenix, so it's pretty easy for me to go to because I could just stay at her house. I might do that. I haven't really, like most of my time this year probably going to be spent more on the design aspect, but any convention I can get to, I'm going to probably go to just and take that with the prototype with me just to get work done on it. So yeah,
totally. Why not? So so Mike, I think WashingCon at this point is off the table for us. I think plague conditions.
Yeah, it's looking unlikely, unfortunately. Maybe next year.
Yeah,
maybe next year.
I will say, so the Dragoons are still going to be at Origins. We've still got a plan for a significant wargame presence there, so I will definitely be at Origins. We're hoping Mike actually gets off his butt and commits more than a week ahead of time. But we'll see. We know Gary's going to be there. We know Rick is going to be back. We're going to have a handful of the usual suspects there. We're hoping Mike is one of them. Beyond that, Mike, anything else on the horizon for you guys, for convention stuff?
Not this year.
30 days from now, there will be plenty of conventions happening.
Exactly. I was going to say not this year, maybe after this year ends. I was, he had talked about doing Mace, but unfortunately, like you said, that may not happen. So that would have been another one that I would like to have gone to. So
yeah. So just to be clear, I'm not saying Mace isn't happening this year. I'm saying we don't know yet. And it's too early to tell. And the biggest thing is obviously the focus right now is the Smith family, and let's take care of them. What we don't know, Ron has been kind of Jeff's right-hand man for a long time, helping run a lot of the technical stuff that helps make Mace go. Ron has sort of stepped into helping make sure Mace West gets pulled off. Beyond that, I don't know what's happening. Unfortunately. So
so
to be fair, nobody does. So
it'll be different starting next year. And I'm not too far from some of these conventions, going in this area. HistoriCon's not too far from here. Actually Sandusky, that's not too far from here. So that's another so there's maybe some of these smaller conventions I can start hitting.
You've got PresCon right down the street too in Charlottesville.
And that's the thing, as you start looking at what's out there, you start finding more and more, it seems like, that there's cons all over the country, the small cons.
Imagine if somebody had like a master calendar with all of those conventions all listed on one big calendar that you could find.
It would be nice, but that someone would have to find somebody to populate that calendar. So
how cool would that be if there was somebody to actually like maintain that calendar over the long haul and people to use it? That would
be cool. That would be neat.
Justin's nodding. I don't think he realizes we have one on our site, and it was when we first launched the Dragoons, we put this calendar up and we loaded everything, not just all the conventions, but like every club calendar we could possibly find. So like Cabs up in Columbus, we had the Cabs calendar linked to this. So if you wanted to know what Cabs meetings were, they were on our calendar. There was some game store in Dallas that had like every other Wednesday was a war game night. So we had that on the calendar, like everything we could possibly find. And the thing got like 8 hits in 6 months. Like nobody was using this page at all. And so we just sort of let it die. And then the plague hit, so it didn't matter. But then like 6-8 weeks ago, well, it was a little more than that. It was back in the fall, right around the time of PAX Unplugged. Suddenly everybody's like, hey, so when's the next convention? Hey, when's another convention? Hey, is there some master calendar of all these? I'm like, God damn it, we had it. We had that calendar and y'all didn't give a shit, so we didn't keep it up.
I feel like if you just made it its own website, just a one-page website that was just constantly, like whatever you would call that, make it the go-to resource that like it's just some easy URL that people remember,
Well, if you go hit armchairdragoons.com, it's the events tab. Right.
Yeah, it really wasn't hard to find. It wasn't that.
Yeah, we didn't hide it. It's right up at the top.
Maybe that was the problem. Maybe we should have hit it.
It's labeled calendar, right? It's live events across the wargaming world. And not only is it all on the calendar, but we've got the convention only extract down below that I need to go back and strip off the couple of them that have just recently happened, like Game On at Williamsburg Muster, and slap next year's dates on the end of those. But yeah, I mean, it's there and it's existed for, several years and nobody cared until like, 2 months ago.
I'm going to start using that if you guys update it. That'll help me immensely. Had I known about it, I would have been the 9th person to use it.
Well, not only that. So the other thing that we do have for folks that are listening out there and going, gee, Brant, that's real helpful. There is a link right above the calendar. We've got a link to a form that if you've got your own conventions or events that you want added to the calendar, go fill out that form for us so that we've got them to be able to add. And we do ask that you fill out the form. Don't just send us an email, because the form is set up to populate in the format that we need for the Google Calendar tool to ingest the like a spreadsheet version, so we can load 8, 10, 12 things all at once. So please use that form if you've got conventions or other events. It doesn't have to be a full convention, just regular larger meetup events or whatever. Let us know so we can get them up on the calendar. A bunch of the ones that are on our calendar just recently happened. Game On just recently happened. Williamsburg Muster, some photos for that went up on the site.
That's
up
another
on
one I'm
their
close
site.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, we linked Williamsburg Muster and Tuesday Newsday, but Winterfest going on right now. Battle at the Crossroads over on the other side of Ohio. It just recently happened. A bunch of those photos went up online not long ago. There's some pretty cool stuff happening there. So we've got a bunch of these that we've been sharing info on. So and linking to the coverage of them that other people have done. So what's cool about all of this is that there's people in rooms together playing war games again, right? And that's the important part of all.
That's what you want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the cool part of all of that. So those things have gotten shared again. So Justin, one of these days we're gonna have to get us and you at a real in-person game convention somewhere. Somehow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been dying to go to like Compass Games Expo or MMP's thing or any like Origins, like one of the East Coast things that or Eastern US things that's got a wargaming focus. I've been dying to go to.
Yeah. We still harbor delusions of grandeur of holding a Dragoons specific wargame convention somewhere. So the 12 of us that will bother to show up that weekend can all get together and game. But we'll see when and if we can actually pull it off.
Hey, but if it's just 12, that'll be a lot of fun still.
Yeah, that's a great player count. You have two full 6-player games going at once.
There you go.
Well, the other thing is everybody after 12 means you need another bottle of scotch.
Well, if Gary comes, he can bring his excess from his cellar.
How much excess do you think Gary would really claim to have in his scotch, right? Gary's going to claim to have zero excess. It's all for him.
And that just means we'll have to force him to do a counter clipping stream every night of the Armchair Dragoons convention.
Sure. Yeah, but see, Mike, the other thing is if we can get Bob to fly over for one of those, he can bring us a bunch of scotch from Scotland because he's like an hour drive from 8 different distilleries, and we'll get Bob to just bring it all back with him.
That'll work.
ScotchCon. Let's do it.
Yeah.
ScotchCon.
Well, what'll happen is Bob will bring us a suitcase full of scotch this way, and he'll go home with a suitcase full of games back to the UK. Yeah. That's what'll happen. So, all right, cool. This has been a ton of fun, Justin. Thank you for making the time to join us here on Mention and Dispatches. Mike, thanks for sitting in and pulling yourself away from the teeming metropolis that you live in there, and
that's right.
Finding some time to eke out for us. So.
Fighting the traffic to get back here to do this. Yep.
Yeah. There you go. The trip from the back deck to the living room was a long trek, wasn't
it? That's right.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. This is awesome.
Yeah, it was great to meet you, Justin. Enjoyed it.
Likewise.
We will absolutely do this again. For folks that didn't see it, Justin did the Robotech interview during the last ACDC. And so now that he's done one, every other future ACDC, we're going to require him to show up and do something.
I love it. I'm ready. Throw it at me and don't tell me what it is. Just let me ad hoc it.
No, you see, we do that. Dan's the one we do that to. We do that to Dan.
Right. He's also much better at doing that than I am, probably.
Yeah. So
that's how he does. That's how he does the GMs at Origins. We don't know what we're going to run until the day before, and he goes, "Here, you've got to run this game." And we're like, "I never even heard of this."
You realize I can prove otherwise with the email traffic that I've saved, right?
That's true. He gives us a week. I shouldn't say that.
At least a week. So cool. Audience, thank you very much for spending a little time with us here on Mention and Dispatches. We've still got some connections online coverage coming up down the line. We've also we're going to be looking forward to some of those other game conventions that we discussed. I'm sure after Buckeye Game Fest, we're going to have a sit down with Gary and talk with him some about what all they did at Buckeye Game Fest and with the War Room, and who knows what else we're going to end up talking about over the course of this season of Mention and Dispatches. So thanks, and we'll catch y'all next time.